How does a screenwriter ruin the first 10 pages of their screenplay?
Well, more than ever. It used to be you would get an act, right? So your script would go out to the executives across town, and some executive would read it over lunch, and by the end of Act 1 on page 25, they know whether they're buying the script or not, or advocating to their boss to buy the script, or advocating to the studio to buy the script. So you got 25 pages, luxurious. You can play out your whole concept, play out your character, your hero, and then off on the hero's journey they go. It's a luxurious 25 pages. Well, what's happened is with the advent of streaming, people don't give a movie or TV show that much time. They're sitting on their couch, they turn it on, and they know within a few minutes if they're watching this thing or not. And oftentimes it's no, click out. And the streamers are noting all of this. So they know that they don't have the luxury of 25 pages to have, or 25 minutes to have their viewer try something out. So then they apply that same standard to themselves. Well, you need to get me within the first 10 pages. And some people even advocate it's down to like 1 to 3 at this point. But you have to capture their attention. You have to capture them with a concept and with something fresh, something that they haven't seen before. And you have to do it quickly. Now, the trick is you don't want to completely blow out, your beginning, middle, and end. You don't want to give away your ending. You don't want to, you want to be able to, as writers and artists, you want to be able to slowly percolate these things and develop them and give them time. So you have to be clever about how you do it. And oftentimes, sometimes what people do is they'll use like a flashback, or they'll use something that is a scene that's going to be happening later and just give us a tidbit of it so that we feel and absorb the concept, but now you're going to start the story from here. So we know what's coming, and at least we can anticipate that. Those have become almost tropes at this point, using those techniques. So I tend to try to avoid those because they are so familiar as techniques nowadays. And I try to find different ways in, but it is critical that you convey your concept certainly within the first 10 pages, and that you also do your best work. If you're going to hand over a 120-page script to somebody, there's going to be parts of it that you read and go, oh, that's the scene, right? Boy, I really outdid myself there. Well, wherever you should be saying that is the first 10 pages. And you should take the time to hone that and work on that and make sure that the characterizations are there, that the concept is there, that the dialogue is there, and that the originality is there. Because they really, truly are not making it beyond 10 pages anymore because of the way that viewers aren't making it past 10 minutes anymore. And so the onus is on us to come up with a way to engage people, but at the same time, hopefully not completely give it all away and have nowhere to return from because we've blown our load all the way out of the first shot.
Sure, and the days of sort of family sitting around the TV watching 8 is enough, and it slowly starts to happen are gone, and now we're on our computer doing other things and multitasking.
Right, multitasking, all that stuff. It's definitely it is the challenge of streamers, and it's created more places to go with material, but it is a different kind of viewing experience, and I think part of that's why the TV binging seems to be almost a better fit for streaming, because you have episodes and you can stop if you want and come back to it, and you still have the ability to sort of tell isolated episodes that are part of a larger whole. Whereas a movie, it is the thing, and you have to go through the whole thing. And if you stop in the middle of movies and come back, it kind of ruins the experience, and so it's trickier in streaming with the features.
You now work with screenwriters as a script consultant and story sort of analyst.
Yeah.
What common mistakes are you seeing?
Well, I think usually it has to do with, and it always comes back to this, which is grasping what is a mass appeal concept. and what is a mass appeal idea. And again, that's why I always say to people, look, if you want to write a story about a family, having a crisis over a Christmas holiday or something, that's great, and you should. But that's not going to be a spec sale to a Hollywood studio, because that's not a big enough idea. That's not a big enough concept. That's not a mass appeal idea. And so that's why I always delineate, because I don't mean to diminish any idea. Some of the most incredible movies are the tiniest of stories. It's just that if you want to sell a screenplay to Hollywood, a spec script to Hollywood, you have to meet certain criteria. And part of that criteria is that there has to be a very high concept idea, a very big, fresh, innovative idea that a huge movie star could have a primal experience confronting and carrying out. So a lot of the log lines that I read just don't quite hit that mark. And it's just sort of it takes time to learn what that is. And that's why I encourage people, the best way to it's like a film school education. You should go and read the trades every day, Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, and look at what sells and read what the concept was. If you do that every day, you'll start to see consistent qualities that they have, consistent themes. You should also go on the internet and try and get your hands on every screenplay you possibly can, whether it's been produced, whether it's just a spec sale that sold at one point. You can get those from, agents and managers and whatnot. But the more you read screenplays, the more you start to grasp what those big ideas look like. And sometimes I find that when I read screenplays of like some big spec sale or something, I'm inspired by an idea of my own. Like I'll see a little piece in their script that they just stepped over and didn't think anything of, and I'll be like, there's something to that. And so I get inspired by other people's screenplays. And so it is only by having the experience of doing the research on a daily basis to see what the marketplace is elevating as worthy of a spec sale, and then reading those scripts and reading the movies that they get turned into, and seeing the ideas over and over and over. And over time, it's like I started out working for a couple of huge producers. And so my job as an assistant often was to read these scripts that came across the desk. And I read countless scripts. So I developed very early in my Hollywood experience an understanding of what a high concept idea, what a big spec sale idea required, what it consisted of. And that just, I think a lot of that comes from exposing yourself to it and just really digging deep into all those elements to understand what it is.
Well, if I may play devil's advocate for a moment, you say maybe a family story around Christmas of a family sort of in crisis. If we take Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, well, it was a family sort of in crisis waiting for dad to come home.
It's a wonderful movie. It would never get made today. Never.
You don't think so?
Well, let's put it this way. It would never sell as a spec today.
Okay.
Because there's just it's too earnest. There's not enough hijinks for some star to make a buffoon of himself. There's not enough conceptually going on there, which is a shame. Like a bunch of the things that I sold in the past would never sell now. And it's just because they came from an era where there was a willingness to develop ideas. And so I'm hoping that we're returning to that. And it would be wonderful if we are. But there it is. So a lot of people point to some movies that have gotten made in the past and say, well, see, isn't this proof that you can get away with this? But the path that some movies get there, let's say John Hughes says, I'm doing this. Well, that's why. It's not because it's a spec sale from Joe in Kansas that he sold one day. It's another reason that something made it to the screen. And so that's why I tend to be particularly harsh in my assessment of what is a viable spec sale idea, because it is a very, very small window of possibility, and it usually has some very clear parameters as to why.